Now, it was the middle of July month, one day last year. Jim was out on his bridge with a bottle of beer. He'd been hard at it all day, out cutting his grass, and then putting in sparbles on his old iron lass. He'd fixed up a leak in his roof with some tar, made an oar for his punt with a nice stick of var. He was thinking that Caitlin might roll on the beach, when Aunt Josie let out with the dirty big screech. "My jumpins, mate," he said, as he ran in the house. "I suppose now the cat never got every mouse." "Mine now," she said. "'Twasn't mice that had drove her. 'Twas a toilet blocked up and run out all over." "Huh," said Uncle Jim. "I'd sooner 'twas mice. He had a job to do now, and it wouldn't be nice." He knew that he needed some help right away, so he called up his buddy, Uncle Bill Shea. But is buddy the right word? Well, now that depends. They were the best kind of enemies and the worst kind of friends. There was just about nothing on which they'd agree. If Jim wanted coffee, Bill wanted tea. If Jim's Rodney was anchored, Bill's punt was moored. Jim was a Chev man, Bill drove a Ford. Jim was a Leafs fan, Bill liked the Habs. Jim's wood was in junks, and Bill's was in slabs. What Jim called a haul-off, Bill called a freight. Jim liked cod's heads, and Bill liked the napes. Jim thought that Coker had been right all along, and Bill thought the man was as stunned as a prong. So, being best friends when they weren't in a fight, Jim called up Bill, and he told him his plight. "Be there right away," Bill said. "I just had a scoff. I'll get some gear, you get the ground I'll scrope off." Now, Bill had equipment for this kind of thing, a '58 Dodge truck with neither shockser nor spring. In the back on its side was an old oil tank that he'd bought for $5 from his son-in-law, Frank. He stopped at the hole Jim had dug in the ground to the septic tank top, about 2 feet down. Jim had the cover removed from the tank, and certainly you know now that never stank. Said Uncle Bill. "I'd say there's no doubt she's been got overfilled and wants to be pumped out. You got something for that?" Jim was sat on a stump. "Yes, boy," said Bill. "Help me lift down my pump." With the pump on the ground, Jim looked at it closely. "What kind is it?" he said. Bill said, "Well, mostly a Honda, I suppose, but the motor was small and went all abroad on a job from last fall." "I put in something stronger," he said, clearing his throat, "last year when I scrapped out my old motorboat." Said Uncle Jim, sitting back on his stump. "A 4-horsepower Acadia septic tank pump." Bill ran a hose from the pump to the tank in the back of the truck, and another from the pump to the tank full of muck. Then he primed the old engine, gave the flywheel a flick, and had it running like that. Yes, sir, Bill was some slick. The tank started to empty at a pretty good rate, and Bill looked pleased with himself, and he started to prate about the stuff he could build and how handy he was. He probably should have kept quiet because, see, a 4-horsepower Acadia got a fair bit of torque, and this one was hopping around like a cork that you'd use for a bobber when you're out on a pond and you got a nice trout or an eel hooked on. The pump, sir, was headed right straight for the tank, and each time it hopped, it would give a good yank to the holes in the tank in the back of the truck, which was filling up quickly with septic tank muck. Both of our heroes saw at the same time what the outcome would be, and they both started trying to get at the kill switch that Bill had rigged up and shut down the quickly migrating putt-putt. But the pump had a mind of its own, or you'd swear, and would dart at the boys if either got near. It seemed that the three were in some kind of dance when Aunt Josie came out for a look just by chance. "My jumpins," she said, as she furrowed her brow. "What in the world are those two at now? And here's where it gets really interesting, see? The holes in the tank in the truck popped out free. Now, remember what I said about Acadia torque and how this one was hopping around like a cork? The holes end was snapping around like a whip, and with septic tank contents was letting her rip. Aunt Josie had out a line of clean clothes. They got it first from the untethered hose. Uncle Jim's pickup was next to turn brown, and yes, sir, you guessed it, the windows were down. Uncle Bill got it next from his toes to his head. He'd almost made cover in Jim's old woodshed. Jim had found shelter behind his back fence, and he would have stayed there if he had any sense. But he poked up his head for a quick look at Bill, and he laughed at the sight of him covered until a blast from the hose got him right in the face. He stopped laughing then. He was put in his place. The pump had now hopped 20 feet, I would say, wreaking havoc and all, if I can put it that way. But it must have been tired of its fine little prank, because with the last blast at Jose, it hopped into the tank. Not long after that, Bill scrapped out his pump, after fishing it out of the tank where it sunk. Him and Jim don't talk to each other if able, and Aunt Josie says the two of them are stunned as a grapple. But Bill got new plans for the Acadia 4, with a smaller flywheel that he found in his store, and some minor adjustments to the old carburetor, a 4-horsepower Acadia kitchen carburetor.